Okay, it's 7:02. I'm going to call this meeting to order. And pursuant to Governor Baker's COVID-related orders, we'll be meeting tonight via remote participation. A copy of the Grafton Public Meeting Remote Participation Guidelines is available on the town website for reference. And I will do a roll call really quickly. Sue Robbins.
Robin's here.
Amy Marr.
Amy Marr here.
Greg Marr.
Here.
Jeremy Graves.
Here.
Colleen Roy here. And also present tonight is Chief Crapo.
Yeah.
And Beth Galloway.
Here.
Okay, so we asked both of you guys to come in tonight because we had some questions. So maybe we'll start with Chief Crapo and talk about the police department request, and then we will talk about the library, if that's okay with everybody. Okay.
It works.
All right, so I'll just open it up to, does anybody have any questions for the police requests? If not, I know I have a couple, so. Okay, great. So I'll start with mine.
Have a good night.
Yeah, okay, bye. So the additional cruisers, my only question for that was, does that include any savings built in if we were to auction off the existing cruisers, or is there a trade-in value that's built into that $45,000?
There, the 45,000 is bare minimum. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm
Yeah.
getting a little feedback though. That's why I don't know if it's my computer.
Oh.
But the 45,000 is actually bare minimum cost. Don't forget, this is for next fiscal year, so the price is going to go up a little bit. But depending on the cruisers that we trade in, we're hoping to get some trade-in value, on that. So, and whatever we have left over would revert eventually back into the general fund. For several years, as you know, we've been sending our cruisers up to the municipal center, and but now the ones that we have, just like the two that we're getting now that were just approved at town meeting, I wouldn't send those up to the municipal center because one of them, the electrical problems that we're having, and the other one, front end problems, because actually when we first got that one was involved in an accident. The front end was damaged. I mean, it's been used, but it's got mileage on it now. I wouldn't want to give it up to town hall anyways, but they will have some residual value in the future. And just to let you know, I think if not after the next batch we buy, the cruisers themselves are about 33,000, 34,000. I used to, as Sue knows, we used to buy our cruisers for about 26, 27,000 in the past when we were driving the Crown Vics, but now they're just crazy expensive. But the new ones that we have now, the 20s and newer, will not accept the equipment that we have in the ones that we first purchased back going to 2014 to 2019. Those used to be able to transfer the equipment, so it's a lot cheaper. The newer cruisers, though, the reason why the expense is almost $11,000 in upfitting, light bars, sirens, consoles. The cage alone that we have that separates the prisoners is probably about $2,200, just that alone. Then there's the install prices. Once we start rotating that out, we get more 20s or newer, we'll be able to save money on the purchase of the equipment itself, because we can just transfer the equipment rather than have to buy new ones all the time until they change the make of, the type of vehicle. The 2020 and newer, you probably don't see it, but the older cars, these cars are actually 11 inches wider than the Ford Explorers that we're driving, prior to 2020. 11 inches, that's a lot. So none of the equipment fits. So I guess it's planned obsolescence on the equipment makers and the on Ford also that sells these cars. So that's what we have to deal with right now.
Okay, my only other question is for the additional radio receiver in South Grafton. You mentioned possible grant. When would you have more information on that?
The only thing I can think of that we could possibly get would probably be an earmark, which we've been lucky to get, but I don't know what the state has right now. I don't know what kind of surplus they'll have. As those of you know, earmarks are few and far between. Over the last 2 years, we got them. Prior to that, we hadn't gotten any. But I'm going to hound Representative Meridian and Senator Moore and see if there's any earmark money. We could probably do that. And last time we got an earmark, it was for 25,000. So that should help. Also, I'm looking. I didn't put it in my my request, but I'm looking at National Grid and probably another company that puts in poles. I expect the pole to be about $5,000 to purchase one and install. If I can get that for nothing, then that's $5,000 off. You know, this should be a top price for this this equipment. So, but I'll be looking. And I just want to mention too, I've got the request for the cruisers and for the receiver. The thing is, though, the cruisers are going to be every year. As Sue knows, we have a fleet management program to replace the cruisers every year, 2 a year, and they last about 3-4 year cycle. So in the following years, are you jumping into the following years also? Or you're just worried about this year?
So right now, we're trying to get this FY22 completed and then jump into the 5-year.
Right. So just to let you know, we will be putting in for cruises each year. Normally, talking to Sue too, I'm sure you'd realize, and the Finance Committee, that normally that for several years, for most of the years that I've been here, we've put that in our operating budget, not as capital. So in talking with Carter, he said, put it in the capital, but I'll also have it in the operating budget too, request. So I don't know how he plans to work that. That's new for me. Usually we go one or the other, but whatever works, you know.
That was going to be my next question.
Yep. So
I know, Norm, that Finance Committee's meeting with Carter on the 19th, and that was one of the discussions that I wanted to have with him about seeing if we can't keep the police cruisers in the operating budget like we've done in the past.
right.
And it only makes sense to me to do it that way. So maybe he did it both ways until he has a discussion with the Finance Committee.
Right.
Because we brought it up at the town meeting when we had our fall town meeting. We brought that discussion up then. So we'll bring it up again with him.
Okay. I mean, just for clarification, you know, if you want to go strict interpretation of the capital plan, the cruisers are meant, we get them to last 3 to 4 years. So they don't fall within that 5-year replacement cycle. They go 3 to 4 years. So,
Yep.
you know, and the threshold is the $10,000. Naturally, they meet the money threshold, but not the operating use threshold. So.
Right. It's amazing to me that these video cameras have lasted this long.
Yes, yeah, we've done some patchwork on them, but eventually, you know, those are going to go. I mean, if you want to get on the cameras for 1 second, we just use those. We have the 2 tower cams. I don't know, has everybody been in the station, the police station before? No, never. Seen our dispatch area and all.
Not seen dispatch, but I've been in.
No. Okay. Well, the dispatch area, we have several cameras. As a matter of fact, now we monitor the high school and all the other schools too. We're linked in with them. So our dispatchers, when schools in session, can watch. Plus we watch the exterior perimeter of the police station. The 2 tower cams though have 360 degrees worth of view. So we actually, during the election, we're monitoring the red box for the mail-in ballots. We put the camera, trained it on there, and we were able to watch that 24 hours a day so that there wouldn't be any tampering. But the one thing we do have, as I mentioned in my request, is the fact that they're analog cameras. They're hooked into a digital system, but the cameras, the lenses themselves, don't lend to a very clear view of faces, of license plates, or anything like that. So, and like Sue mentioned, we are very lucky they've lasted this long. I mean, they were installed in 2006, so we've gotten a lot of good use out of them. They owe us nothing.
So what you're saying is I'm safe for 1 more year.
1 more year. Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
You can't identify me. So
It's come in handy. We've actually had, we've watched with that drug deals going on and stuff like that from far away. And they're good cameras. I mean, like I said, you can't make out faces or plates or whatever, but they can watch. And they're excellent cameras for their time, but they need to be replaced eventually.
Awesome. Does anybody else have any other questions for Chief Crapo? All right, well, thank you very much for coming in. That was all very useful information.
Oh, good. Okay. I'm
Thanks.
gonna get back to my reading now.
Okay.
You.
Have a good night. Thank
Night.
you. Don't hesitate to email me or call me, whatever, if you have a question, something that I missed or whatever. Never a problem. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right.
Thank you too.
Hi, Beth. So now we're going to get into the library, and I'll open it up to everyone else first. Does anybody have any questions for the library requests?
I just need to have Beth explain this a little bit more. Would you
Sure.
do that, Beth, for us?
Yeah, so I just wanted to pull up my request,
Okay,
which I asked for $254,900 to cover the cost of items related to self-check, which we've been implementing over the past 3 years in a multi-phase project. We started with getting some funding to put a special RFID barcode in the back of every book so that we could have an automatic materials handler in our new library, because it saves staff time when items come in and are automatically checked in and sorted into a bin before they get reshelved. And it saves staff time for patrons to have the ability to check out their own items. So we've been moving in that direction so that we don't have to hire as many staff in the future. And so that sort of to take some of the grunt work out of the library work to free up staff to do readers advisory and have more one-on-one conversations with patrons and do more outreach and programming. So this is part of a long continuum. We had planned the automatic materials handler as part of the library renovation. So technically it's paid for with our $16.6 million request that we had at town meeting that then went to the ballot vote that passed. It's not a reimbursable expense. Remember, we have a grant to cover 48% or so of the library renovation, and they don't help to pay for equipment, which AMH and self-check machines are considered to be equipment. Doesn't pay for furniture and rugs and parking lot paving and landscaping, you know, and that kind of stuff. So my thinking in putting in the request to cover the cost of the automatic materials handler, or AMH, the 2 additional self-checks, we have 2 now, but we're going to a space almost 4 times as large and wanted to add additional ones on the 1st and 2nd floor. I think I also put in a request for a self-checkout locker to secure items, which isn't something we've ever actually talked or thought about until COVID-19 came along. If you've used the library in the last 4 months or so, we have been checking items out ahead of time to patrons, putting them in a brown paper bag and setting them on the porch at St. Andrews within a certain time frame, and hoping that the right person comes and takes the right bag with no security cameras or staff to be available to sit outside and watch for that. And a self-checkout locker is something that a patron had suggested early in the planning stages of the project that we didn't budget for. This is a 2, 3, or 4 column, basically set of lockers with different locked or pin code type slots with a computer set into it. You go up to it and put in your library card or scan your card, and it gives you the pin and you unlock just the locker with your items. So it has privacy and security. So that's sort of a pie in the sky thing. It would be nice to have, because with the design of the facility that we're going to be opening less than a year now, the lobby area can be locked off from the rest of the building. And it's for after hours programming, but it would also allow us to extend the library hours to some degree without needing to have a staff member present. So the person who requested this self-checkout locker is somebody who said, it's great that you're open at 10 a.m. and you're open till 9, 4 nights a week, but that's like, I can't stop on my way to work and get my items. But if you had some kind of a locker set up, I could go into the lobby. I couldn't go off into the staff areas or the public areas of the building, but I could go in, go to a locker, pick up my item and be gone. Meanwhile, maybe the custodian is working somewhere else in the building, so it's not completely deserted, but it's kind of an opportunity to extend service. So again, so that's, like I said, that's new, that's pie in the sky. I think it's like $41,000 for the set of 3 or 4 units to make up the section. We could hold, I think, up to 15 books per locker rack. One's taken up by the computer, so maybe we'd have 30 items available for the self-check holds. But again, the AMH and to some degree the self-checks are covered by that construction grant. And the reason that I included them, because technically they are capital items. We do need them. They will last for quite some length of time. But I think financially, I was also thinking in my head, if we can pay for this out of money that's already being collected from the taxpayers, then that reduces the borrowing that we have to do to complete the library project. And that's money that has interest, I'm assuming, tied in with it. So it might actually be a cost savings if we can find another way to pay for it. And that's why I've come to you and asked for it. We also have, we do have a capital campaign that's working really hard to fundraise not only for this current renovation that we're in the middle of, but we'll act in perpetuity to continue to go after fundraising so that we don't have to rely as much on Town of Grafton for new furniture or new rugs or $200,000 worth of new computers or emergency repairs. They're continuing to have that capital campaign kind of ongoing. And right now they're getting people to donate for named spaces. But I got to tell you, we can say that we really would love to have somebody pay for the AMH or for these self-checkout lockers, but I think only the right donor is going to think that that's really a sexy thing to do, as opposed to buying the patio that you can put your name on. So to recap, there are alternative sources of money. I recognize that there are other needs in town. It would be really cool and cutting edge to have these self-check lockers, which was just a piece of the request. And I'm happy to answer questions if you have questions still.
So you said you think that if these items are, these self-check items are procured through the capital, then they would reduce the amount of borrowed money for the library project?
That would be my understanding. And I was asked when I submitted the request to Chris, I sort of asked him about it and kind of couched it in that way. Here's why I think it might be a money-saving idea in the long run to pursue. And then I think myself and the board just decided to pursue this request as an exercise to see if you felt the same way.
How much does it save on the tax rate though? I mean, 254,000 isn't going to be a big reduction in the,
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I think there was a question Monday night about what effect this would have on staff costs, or, I mean, would it mean less staff, or would it mean that staff is available for other things, or both?
I think that it's both. So last year we circulated around 150, let's say 150,000 items, physical items that somebody had to grab off the hold shelf or take off a regular shelf and walk up to the desk, and a staff member had to physically check that item out. And that happened 150,000 times. And then anything returned during the day or in the book drop, that had to be now also checked in. So it's 300,000 staff transactions a year. When you divide that by the number of hours we're open and the number of staff I have, then it sounds like all they do is check books in and out. And that's actually not anybody's job duty or job description. They're also doing 10 other things at once, answering the phone and pull listing. So to sort of, again, alleviate that more mundane task so that we can give more personal time, I think is really important. The research says that when you open a new building, you get an increase of about 300% of your current stats for items going out, for new library card requests, for reference questions answered, for computer use, for programs and program attendance. And with, we have 8 staff that are full-time and 10 that are part-time. I think it's like 13 full-time equivalents, depending on if you use 35 hours, right, or 40 hours. We're going to be completely overwhelmed. And I don't want to have to go to the town and ask for more bodies just to handle checkout volume. So, and I can try and put a financial figure on it. I do feel like we tried to do that when we asked for a fine reduction and we're told don't speculate. That's not helpful to us, to try and put a value to the work that somebody does, say, just handling cash flow and deleting fines from a record. So I find it hard to then, with that response, to monetize staff checking in and out of items.
That increase of 300%, is that, how long does that last? Is that just like grand opening, everybody's excited, so 3 months later it dips back
Yeah.
down? Or is
It
it?
tapers, it's at least the first year. Yeah,
First
and I doubt it will ever go back down to the level that it was.
So Beth, do you have volunteers that help out at the library?
Yeah, we had 5 senior tax write-off volunteers this year, actually. They primarily do shelving. They are not trained, equipped to do check-in and check-out, because now we're talking confidentiality of patrons. It's volunteers are not allowed to do that kind of library work. Otherwise, every library would be volunteer run. There's also a higher level, understanding how to answer a reference question. Some of it can be taken care of with training, but the typical volunteer is not a librarian. So,
But could you, other volunteers though? I mean, I don't understand the confidentiality. I mean, I don't care if someone knows my name and address when I check out at the
yeah,
library.
what you check in and check out should only be known to you. It's completely private. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
could see
well,
that, if
Yeah.
let's say I was struggling with addiction too, and I was trying to get help books and I didn't want people to know. I can see, I could find reasons for that. But
Yeah.
I do have a question in the sense that when you bundled this one request, it seems like 4 separate requests. Why did you choose to do one request rather than these 4 separately?
I think that I wanted to show the scope of the project, again, that it's kind of a continuum. And I separated it out so that your committee could decide, we'll fund this, but not that. It didn't occur to me that I should have separated it out because it's all related to self-checkout.
Right, but like the pie in the sky lockers, right? You wouldn't want that to tank the self-checkout desks that you're gonna need, kind of a thing. So are you okay if we were to separate them out?
Yes, absolutely.
And how would you like them to be separated?
I would actually be happy to take the form back and do it for you if you would like, but I would do it, you just said 4 requests, I would do it as those 4 items. Just looking here.
So like the automated handler and the security gates, those don't need to be together. They could actually be separate.
Yes,
Okay.
I forgot that the security gates were the other missing piece. Again, that pre-bar coding that we did made it so that when we install and turn those on, it'll send an alert, like a bell will ring if somebody walks out with the item without checking it out.
And how often do people walk out with items without checking things out?
I have no idea because they've walked out. The average loss rate for most libraries is between 3% and 5%.
Amy, you've done that?
Hi, I've done that.
There was an increase when we moved to the self-hold shelf. Like no matter how many signs we put up that said, please, this item isn't going to work in self-check because it has a barcode on the front and not our special barcode embedded in the back. You have to go to a staff member and they'll check it out for you.
I did it
People just
before the signs were put in place. I did it.
Yeah.
And in my defense, I sent my child in to get the stuff, and I didn't, because other libraries have it. You just walk in and take it. I assumed, but I had also made the mistake when we had the separate children's room, and so I checked my stuff out upstairs. And then I met my kids at the bottom of the stairs. I'm like, ready to go. And they're like, yep, let's go. I walked out with 6 books that I never checked out.
Yeah.
And then I brought them back like a week later and I'm like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
So
we checked them in and it says this item wasn't checked out and
it
we just
happened.
missed the stat. It does.
But I think, so I guess either way, these projects are happening.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yeah, I wouldn't get the, I don't know that I would have to fundraise or write a grant or find additional money for the self-check locker, but the AMH, the gates,
That's
and I think that the self-checkout computers, yeah.
Well, that's helpful to know that,
Yeah.
because as we talk about the projects, we may actually, change how we evaluate it. We may do the lockers separately and that might pass, but the other stuff, it's already funded as part of the project. We may decide to just let that go and keep it the way it is.
Sure.
And you get more bang for your buck.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about it, I guess, someday.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Does anybody else have any other questions, or did you want to let us know anything else?
Thank you for your support in the past. You did fund, again, that initial self-check RFID and the 2 original self-check computers. They will be 5 years old, I think, by the time the building opens. And you funded column and door restoration. And I just really appreciate that, you know, you as a committee, you're looking out for the buildings in town and that the library is included in that. So thanks.
I just read something funny. I'm sorry, Beth. The building was looking great. When are you anticipating?
Sooner than you'd think. So right now the substantial completion date, and I think that that means that we can apply for the certificate of occupancy.
Yep.
Is scheduled for June 8th, 2021.
Good.
Yeah, and I think that at that point we will be able to maybe start moving things back, which takes 3 to 4 weeks. And then they'll be working on finishing punch list kinds of things.
And what's the status of the grant?
But going as we are covered, they did not get all of the money that they wanted. NBLC did not get all of the money that they wanted bonded. They were asking for 250 million. And I think they ended up with 200 million or 210 million. So all the libraries on the waiting list, and we are a waitlisted library, their projects are paid for, but what they didn't get was seed money to do the next grant round of planning and design to then launch the next library project grant. And they also didn't get enough to do higher levels of repayment. So that means that the waitlisted libraries are going to be waiting 10 years to get their funding. And usually it's a 5 to 7 year wait. So it's unfortunate. So please do keep on legislators to, renew the bond bill or add money to it. It usually comes around every 5 years, but we're pretty secure that we're getting that money.
What was the status on ranking? Where were you?
There was an initial funding, and then we were like in a second group. We were waitlisted at like 17.
Yeah.
But because the town recognized the value of moving forward, borrowing all the money at once, and doing the project to keep the cost down, since it's a reimbursement grant, they just decided to go for it, right? So that bumped us up. I think right now we're like number 9 on the wait list, not 9 on the funded list. And they've just started partially funding that first set of libraries that got their award in 2017.
So if you're looking to be done by early June, I'd imagine that would mean that the security gates, the check-in and the checkout would have to be installed by that point?
Before we open to the public, yeah.
Okay, so those would necessarily have to come out of, those wouldn't, you couldn't fund those out of the capital budget for next fiscal year then?
I don't think so.
But you could
Self-check
add
lockers.
the lockers afterwards.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions? Looks like we're good. Well, thank you so much for coming in and taking the time today.
Absolutely. Thank you for making the time for me. I appreciate it.
Did you want me to send you a new submission form, or do you have the template still?
I still have it. Yeah, I can break it out. I will try to get to that by Friday, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's perfect.
I would appreciate it if you'd break it out. That would be helpful.
Will
Thanks,
do.
Beth.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking for what you need.
All right. Thank you. Have a great night.
You
Bye,
too.
Beth.
Bye.
Okay, so that was very informative and helpful. Does anybody else want to talk about the capital package at this point? I know we're going to have some more people in on Monday. We're going to have conservation, planning, and DPW in to do the same thing again. So I don't know if there's too much more to discuss tonight.
What about the school department?
I was gonna ask,
There you
so
go.
did everybody get my email?
Yep.
Okay, so Anita's gonna call me tomorrow. What ended up happening was Jay sent me the spreadsheet with the projects listed and basically kind of re-ranked from last year. So he pulled out all the 2020 stuff that was already funded and took, rearranged it. And the thought was, oh, it's all in the budget book. And I said, you don't have to fill the forms out for all of these, but could you just do the tractor? So Anita's going to fill out a form for the tractor. That's the first item on the list because it's brand new. It's a replacement for something that apparently just broke. So she's going to do that by the end of the week. But then as I put the page numbers in the spreadsheet to make it easier for you guys to find the data, the information, I noticed that there were some that I could not find in the budget budget book. So I'm going to talk to Anita tomorrow and figure out if I have an old copy that's on the website and the rest of them are in the final and that's just not been posted, or what's going on with that. Because it is the preliminary budget that I sent you. I don't have a copy of the final. I think it's exactly the same. I don't think anything changed. But I didn't know if anybody had any questions on that stuff. If we wanted to set a date to have Jay or Tony come in, if it's too early to do that. I don't know what the committee wanted to do about that.
Is Jay going to, I'm sure you just said it and it probably went in one ear and out the other, but is Jay going to use the forms and fill out his capital items?
No,
No, he's not. Okay.
no. We had talked about it as a committee prior to the forum and everything. And I had said, well, could we just take the book? And we just said, yeah, let's just use the book. There's not gonna be that much new. And it's true. There's one new item.
And that's the tractor.
And that's the tractor. And the project information sheets that are in the capital plan in the school budget are very similar anyway.
Okay,
And they include photos.
okay.
The one part that's requires a little bit of a leap of logic, I think, is legally required, is not called out. Although I will say that the GMS bleachers, that's a weird situation because we can't let just anybody pull those out right now because the insurance company said they're so dangerous that nobody touches those bleachers because they're so old and dangerous. Wow. At some point that's going to become, it's definitely a safety issue,
Right.
but it's going to become a required thing eventually down the line. But I didn't know if it gets too difficult to go back and forth between the spreadsheet and those project sheets, then maybe I can fill those in for the district. Because it would take them, Jay estimated it would take them like 10 to 20 hours to do it.
Ooh.
With everything going on right now, I just feel like that's not a good use of time.
No, I don't think, not with this COVID year. And after what I heard at the.
And he does apologize. He somehow was of the impression that the stuff wasn't due to us until December 1st. So that's why we didn't hear from him.
Okay.
That did get floated out, but that's our deadline.
Yeah. And he felt bad. And I said, don't worry about it. You've got so many deadlines and things. Like this one is probably the least important one.
Right.
It's, you've got us to figure this out. So
when it comes to Jay's prioritization, he's put it in order of what he needs funded first. So is he taking into consideration safety and legal requirements? Because I see after what you just said about the bleachers, for example, how it's 22 on the list. So there's 22 other things that are more pressing or just.
Yeah. And he's got like the field house at 11. Like to me, the field house is a nice to have. It's not, to me, things like the falling apart auditorium and the bleachers in the middle school are more pressing than a field house that could be fundraised, for example. But I don't know what he and the senior staff use. I don't think it's just Jay. I think it's everybody together. They kind of figure out how they're going to order it. But that could be a question we ask him if we bring him on. And
Yeah,
he said
to know safety and legal for sure.
but he'd be available.
Okay.
I do know that things like asbestos abatement have been high priority. The tile floors are they were not stuck down properly when the building was built. And so they've been starting to come up right along. It's really annoying. And it becomes a safety issue. So they've attacked the worst ones first. This is an ongoing thing. The playground is a safety thing. Handicap parking is a legal thing, but we've put that off and put that off and put that off. That's been on the list for a while. I did confirm that he did not put any of the train items on this list. So the last year's list had the Univent for South Grafton, the 1.2 million for the HVAC in the middle school. All that stuff was pulled out of this.
Okay.
So that plumbing and HVAC repairs line, that is not part of the train project. That's stuff that needs to be done separate. And my understanding is from reading, it's mostly plumbing, but my brain is mush. So, but like I couldn't find one of the security glazing on the front of the high school. I couldn't find a description of that. The one of the roof sections I couldn't find. Yeah, repointing NSES. I know I saw that at some point.
Yeah, it's in
Find
there.
it is in there.
The music room walls is in there too.
Yeah.
What can you tell me the page numbers?
Um,
'Cause I'll just update it. I just missed it, huh?
yeah.
I have a tiny, tiny computer screen. It's so tiny.
So the North NSCS, no, that was carpet. That was NSCS library carpet is on 13.
Okay, 13. Okay.
But that's library. The
Right,
other one's
42,000. I hadn't found that either. That's a 42,000, right? Maybe Greg and I should just go through this and
No, that's 58. That's a different one.
Oh,
I
great.
saw the music room because the picture stood out. It's the horseshoes.
Oh yeah. And another thing at the very bottom of the list, my copy anyway, the SGES roof isn't on there at all. And I don't know what happened with that. So I added it to my copy of the list and I'm going to ask Anita about it.
Music room is 36.
Thank you.
I know when he presented the train project to us, he had said he took all the roofs separate. They weren't going to look at roofs at all. So I don't know why he took them off this list then.
Yeah, that was I just wondered if it maybe got forgotten in the copying and pasting. So
It might.
I'm gonna ask.
Repointing is 43.
Can somebody explain that to me? What does that mean?
Fixing all the crumbling stuff between the bricks.
The mortar that the bricks,
Okay.
they kind of chisel it out and then replace it.
And North Street's our oldest building, I believe. Aside from the municipal center, which isn't the school department's responsibility.
The GMS auditorium is 44. The drop.
There's like 3 or 4. Yeah, you're talking about the same one. I have a question that I'm sorry for missing Monday, guys.
Yeah, sure.
I had a brain fart. I guess I'm looking for like things like the ceiling in the auditorium. I understand it's stylistically maybe wanting, but is that like versus fixing the floor, fixing the seats? Do we have any details on the relative impacts of what they're asking for?
Well, I know
Or
that
the negative impacts of doing nothing, I guess, would be another way of asking.
it's a 4-phase project.
Right.
And I don't know that, I mean, it seems like that's the order. That's definitely a question we can ask him.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't know if there was any more information available. You know, separating aesthetic stuff from safety stuff, from functional stuff. With the auditorium, there's mention of the potential to rent it out for other functions. I mean, I don't doubt that is true, but do we have any gauge for how great the demand is there?
It would be huge. It would be huge because right now we get no income from that space.
But do we know that that's something that's in demand in the area that we would expect to be, competitive for?
I would say based on the requests for the high school, yes.
Okay.
There's frequently competing events. There's frequently there's like 3 or 4 dance recitals that happen at the high school every year.
Yep.
We get lots of money because they rent the auditorium for a week.
Yeah, it makes sense. I just didn't know, but
This
this gets
smaller-
easier if we have larger understanding of this fix leads to potential for these other benefits.
I'm not sure if the school department looks at it that way. I mean, because
That
again,
doesn't mean we can't though.
no, I know, but I guess what I'm saying is that, there's this idea that the school department needs to generate revenue, right? And that's not a function of the school department. It's a nice thing. What we really need is enough seats that aren't broken for the
Right,
kids.
but that again gets to the seats and the floor and the condition of the stage. The
exactly.
roof to me is the last thing I would, of those four things, the roof just struck me as
The ceiling.
probably I'm not saying it's great, but I'm not aware of how that's negatively impacting the use of the facility.
I'm not either.
Versus I've seen the broken chairs, I've sat next to the broken chairs. I've seen the condition of the stage. I understand how those are limiting.
Jeremy, it was always the understanding for as long as I've been in this town and when I was on school committee, it wasn't always looked at as a fundraiser, but it was looked at as this was an opportunity to share with the community, our buildings, because we were heating them and everything anyway. So they may come in and just participate. And there was a limit, there were limited spaces where people could hold community functions anyway. So it was always looked upon the school to provide those opportunities for auditorium or the gymnasium or the cafeteria or something to hold their events. And because there just wasn't anything else.
And I get that, and I totally support that. I'm just not well informed about the current level of demand. So
Yep.
trying to understand it better.
Yep, there was a lot of it when years ago, there was a lot of demand all the time. So
Okay.
I can imagine it's only going to increase. So.
All right, so I'll shoot Jay an email and see if he's available for Monday. And if he's not, we'll maybe ask him about Friday and we will take that Friday slot that we were keeping as a possible for next week.
Do you want to ask,
Anita?
I was gonna say, Tony LeMay would be a good
Okay.
ask. He's the guy that, he knows all these buildings inside out. And he could probably really talk to the middle school auditorium stuff, why they're in the order they are. Because, to me, I don't know enough about these kinds of projects. To me, that's one project. Let's redo the auditorium. But I like what they've done and broken it out and said, okay, this is how much it's going to cost. But it looks like they're doing, the numbers aren't working out for me. So that's
Well,
something.
that's the slush fund. You're not supposed to notice that.
Like one line, it's all dropped, it says 56,000, then it says 3,898,000. And then the next line, it says 116.5, and then it says 4 million. Is that a running total? Oh, it's cumulative. That's why. Okay, never mind.
Mhm.
Cumulative cost. Can't read my own spreadsheet. I told you my computer's really small. Small. I need a bigger computer. Okay.
That's why I print everything off to my size. So I can read everything.
So what is the cost of that whole project then? That's not anywhere, right?
No,
Anybody want to do some quick math? That's not me.
Yeah.
Oh, Greg, you're so good.
260, a little over $250,000.
yeah.
Yep.
I'd be shocked if it was anything less.
Well, you're good and experienced at this stuff, Sue.
Yeah.
I'm nuanced. How's that? That's a good word. So Greg has managed to find most. Where we've been talking, he's found most of the items in the book.
I think just North Grafton Playground is the only one left.
I have two.
North Grafton Playground is 40.
Oh.
Oh, and roof section D2.
Yeah, and library carpet. I don't have that either.
I sent you that one.
No, you didn't. Anyway.
Okay. So Greg, not that you're busy or anything, but did you add these to the Google Drive doc or no?
Yes.
You did.
They are there, and all of them currently have a 2022 fiscal year because he didn't break his out that way as I want to do these in this fiscal year and these in this fiscal year. I've heard that he did that in the past and was ignored, so he kind of stopped doing it.
Mhm.
So that's something we could ask him about.
You put the 22s in tonight? Or it was already there in the
I
Google?
put them in, I think, last night or this morning.
Thank you.
Okay,
I think in the past what he did was A, B, and C, not necessarily fiscal year, and A's all got funded. And I think he got away from that because they're all important. So, but maybe we can get a little direction when he
well,
comes in.
when you keep having projects put off and put off.
Yep.
And you don't have priority given to certain things, they all end up being critical, and that's unfortunate because that's why it's so important not to put off certain projects until you know that you could go a couple of years and not worry about it. But the school departments had a lot of things delayed and delayed and delayed because there were other priorities. And so at this point, everything is becoming kind of critical with the capital projects for the schools. So
Would it be a
Um,
relevant thing to consider how long items have been kicked down the road? I don't think it directly speaks to the importance of the request, but context like that, the value of a thing is not just in fixing what's broken, it's in avoiding additional costs to fix it later. So that might help with some, if we had to set, maybe it wouldn't help, but if there are certain items that we think are creeping up in cost, not just because of the turn of the year, but because, like a driveway, you leave a driveway unaddressed, you've got cracks in there, you get, winter comes and erodes the driveway from beneath. So the longer you go, the bigger the fix you're looking for. If I was going through the school list of needs, and I found myself asking that question a few times, like, how long has this been out there? Is this a new need? Is this a long-standing growing need? So that's additional context that I would
And I
love to
think
get
that-
into with the
I think
appropriate person.
ask Jeremy because, and I know Jay could probably say that this has been on the capital list for 3 years, 4 years, and he could give us that information, but I think that's an important question to ask.
Yeah, I'd say even, I
Oh.
forget who the other person mentioned was, but someone who actually knows the facilities well, who could speak to the qualitative,
Yeah.
Right.
state of these things.
I mean, one of the things that he does put in this list that I have to go read the project detail sheets to see if that information's in there. But there are things like replace 23-year-old carpet.
It's carpet.
Stuff like
charming.
that. What?
It's charming.
Well, it gives us an idea of,
But like, I think
gives
there
us
was,
the ages of the buildings.
heating and venting pipe that we're currently paying for custom fabrication for replacement parts on. That is absurd. I get it. It's a way of leaking along from year to year, but we're paying an absolute premium for something that, if we can find a way to bite the bullet and just replace it, we are getting back into the realm of more manageable costs for that one thing. But yeah, we all understand there's not enough money to do everything that needs to be done, let alone what wants to be done.
Well, I think we're in this interesting balancing act, right? Where we have these buildings over here that are quite a bit older, but we're also trying to keep up a really new high school and a fairly new elementary school and take care of all those little things before they get as bad as those older buildings.
Right.
Meanwhile, the older buildings are still falling apart. Yeah, you're right. But that's definitely something we can ask for sure. That's not
Right.
something that's covered on that form, is it, Colleen?
Yeah, resubmission is on the form, so they can check that.
Resubmission, okay.
And I think it'll just take a few more cycles and then we'll have that data readily available to us. But since we're all starting basically from scratch again with this, but it is very helpful information to have when you're determining how you're gonna weigh it. Yeah.
I mean, I could tell you, so I've been on school committee for almost a year and a half, but I've been looking at the stuff for longer. The only things that were on the list that I was not familiar with, so they've been on at least 2 years, are the tractor brand new and the glazing on the front of the high school. Everything else, I've seen it before. I've met with Jay about it. I've been over it and over it. The roofs have been on forever, the roof section. And the HVAC at the middle school, which is not on the list, has been on that list for a very long time. And that number, if you go back and look at old budget books, you'll watch that number creep from 800,000 to 1.2 million, which is where it stands today. So yeah, we're definitely kind of, it's the same with the library. You know, we could have built the library in 1996 for $1 million, but we didn't. So here we are. Yeah, I agree. We should ask Jay about that.
Okay. Do you happen to have Tony LeMay's email?
I do.
Awesome. Send that to me so I can invite both him and Jay in and find a time that works for them if Monday is not available.
It might be a good idea to throw Anita in too.
Yep.
Okay, you have hers?
I have Anita's, yep.
Okay.
Oh, I actually send me Anita's too, because I don't know if I have her school one.
Okay.
That should all be on the website.
Yeah, but then you got to go looking for them.
Well,
It's just as easy to have me do it because I have them.
well, true.
Well,
Alright.
I can give you a hint. Ready? It's LeMay A at da 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 da, and Patel A at da 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 da. Grafton.k12.ma.us. And I know you know that because you have a kid.
Da, 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 da.
Yeah, she knows what that is.
Yep.
I wish it were graftonps.org, but apparently the state doesn't let us do that. So, oh well.
No,
All right. Is there anything else we want to talk about tonight specifically, or?
Well, since Jeremy wasn't here, Monday? What day?
Monday.
Monday. You haven't watched the video yet because it just came out, but we all sang your praises. So thank you for the 15 minutes on meeting, and you're
I
very
had
well
to keep
spoken.
apologizing to my wife every time I stood up.
Oh
Like, there's
no,
a lot of
really?
time, I swear to God.
Tell her
No,
it's okay. She'll get used to it.
No, she's fine. She's fine. She's a supporter of the cause.
you did an excellent job. And I have to tell you, my greatest moment was when Greg got up and said, well, we didn't submit the warrant article. That was the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
That wasn't quite as good as
I thought that was, I love
that wasn't
that.
quite as good
That
as
was-
when he pointed out when we met with you.
Yeah, that was a great one.
Yeah, but I
That was a
asked
great-
for that meeting. Like, not
Oh,
sure how
oh,
that's
I know.
relevant, but okay.
All right.
Look, the
They asked
right
for it
thing got
before,
done.
before we
think
got a chance to
reasonable-
ask them.
Well, yeah,
reasonable this one
I literally think that's what happened. Is I think we talked about meeting with them on a meeting, and then they asked for the meeting before we had a chance to ask them for the meeting.
Right.
So
Curtis, we met.
exactly, we met. We talked to them. They talked to us. It was a good meeting.
Transparency at its finest.
Indeed.
All right.
Indeed.
So Greg was awesome and sent minutes out immediately. Do you guys want to vote on those real quick?
Yep. I
Okay.
move we minutes of, what was that date,
The
Greg?
9th.
The ninth.
I see. I keep thinking it's next week. I move that we approve the minutes of November 9th as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second, and I'll take any discussion. Okay, roll call. Sue,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Abstain.
Greg,
Aye.
and Colleen is aye. Perfect. So I'll send that right over to the clerks. I wonder if I sent the other ones. Okay, so I will take a motion to adjourn if nobody has anything else to discuss. Go, Amy, go.
I had one thing. Has the opening on the committee been announced? Does Jeremy know?
I saw it in the meeting minutes.
Oh, perfect. There you go.
That's why I was kind of figuring it out, given the continued absence, but it's good to see we at least understand what's going on.
And I assume he'll get a letter from the select board.
So we didn't really
For
get a
what?
letter when Mr. Null resigned. So it will be announced at the select board will accept his resignation. I think that's gonna happen next week. It was just a workshop this week, so it hasn't formally been,
Well, the selectmen usually send out a thank you letter for their service, which
That's what I meant.
I never got after serving 16 years on the Economic Development Commission. I wrote this lovely letter and got Zippo. I guess they didn't appreciate my service for those years, so
I appreciate your service, Sue.
I know.
Yep. I'm gonna go to CVS and look for an economic development card.
Could you just,
Thank you, card.
Can I make one?
Ellie, could you just pressure Carter a little bit so if he can give us kind of a number,
Yeah,
a ballpark number for what we're looking for capital?
okay. I can do that.
$800,000.
I'm hoping it's more than that.
I know, but
That's awesome.
Yep.
keeps
I think last week, or Monday, we said there was 250 in the stabilization. So we
360.
should be somewhere over $1 million.
Well, plus there's some free cash. I'm hoping that he'll kind of throw our way
Right.
too. So, I mean, it would be nice to do a big start this year.
Has anyone added up the total cost of the entire, well, probably not, because we just got the schools and it's not all there, but I wonder if
Right.
anybody's added up the cost of the entire package.
Schools is just shy of 6 million.
Wow.
Not including train.
Not including train. Great.
And last
And
year, it was
let's
around
see.
like 18 million for all said and done last year with the backlog. So I don't know if that's changed with, we're basically going off of what we have now, not what was submitted previously, so.
And those were just estimates.
Yeah.
So I'm sure, when you look at all these projects, then the longer we delay them, the more expensive they get. So what we say today isn't going to be anything next year. So
FY '22 town projects, including existing leases, is 1.42 million. Oh, no, 2.42 million because we started with $1 million.
or just 22.
Yes, that is just the 22 stuff.
Okay.
Pretty awesome.
Because the other stuff doesn't carry through to that first sheet.
Okay. Well, if that's everything, we can take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Right, motion in a second, and we'll do a roll call. Sue,
Aye.
Jeremy,
aye.
Greg,
All right.
Amy.
Aye.
All right, and Colleen is aye as well.